So shooters and reloaders out there, Fortune Cookie 45 LC coming to the hot lead zone. And I thought we'd do some testing today of powder coating using some derivations of stuff that we learned from using the Hi-Tech. So you see here I've got baskets here that can stack. So the idea being we're trying to avoid bullets touching each other, being piled up. Well, we got two layers here without the bullets touching each other if we can have these trays that will stack. And what we're doing is we're lining the wire basket with parchment paper. Now the idea being that sometimes we get this awful thing where the bullets touch the wire, and when the bullets come off the wire after being heat cured, that it pulls some residue off of the wire and you get this funny little glitch. Well, with the parchment paper, we won't get that. Plus, the parchment paper offers a suspension. Now also, we're gonna test to see if we can apply the goodness of the thin liquid coatings of Hi-Tech to powder coating. And the way we're gonna do that is we're gonna shake the basket that comes out of our vibratory tumbler. We put the bullets in here and we're gonna shake to get rid of the excess powder. Well, we're really gonna shake it so that we'll get rid of all the excess powder and only be left with one little thin layer of powder coat on the bullets, and then we'll go ahead and heat treat that. And if necessary, we can repeat that with a second coat like we do Hi-Tech. You see, when we do powder coating with more than one coat, if those coats are thick, you get loss of detail and you get clumping and all of this. So we're gonna try and keep the powder coating as thin as possible. Instead of having, say, a moderately thick and do a one coat, we're gonna do a two coat if necessary, so that if we do get any glitches and problems doing the heat cure, we're gonna give it a second coat, a thin coat, and see if we can get good results. And this is in lieu of having to stack all the bullets on their bases, which takes a lot of time. So we're gonna go from the basket, shake off as much of the powder as possible, and even more than that, and then dump them onto the parchment paper, spread them out so that they don't touch each other, do two layers, and if we got to do two coats of that, we'll see what kind of results we get. And also a big hello to Tony Nelson, who had some questions about the feasibility of two coats of powder coat with either Eastwood or Harbor Freight powders. So first up, of course, you see the color of the powder that I had in my vibratory tumbler. And you see I used this rag here to clean the tumbler. See how it's clean in there? And the way it works is like this. You take the rag and you simply wipe the powder off, and you shake the powder and you pour the powder onto the aluminum foil. And this is how you clean a vibratory tumbler of the color you were using before. Easy. To make this test even fairer, I'm gonna use our Harbor Freight Red, the old standby. This is the best of the Harbor Freight powders, of course, but Eastwood powders are better. So if it works for the Harbor Freight Red, we can use it for all the Eastwood powders that we found success doing. So I'll go ahead and put some of this into the vibratory tumbler. So as you see, I've poured some of the Harbor Freight Red into our tumbler, not much. Don't need a whole lot of powder. Now our cast bullets are BHN 15, and they are the 200 grain 44 caliber flat nose bullets. As you see there, we'll go ahead and pour some of these into the tumbler. So there you see the bullets in the tumbler. Now we could do more than this, but I want to only do a test here. So here we go. We'll go ahead and run the tumbler. So we vibed that powder powder coating onto the bullets for about 10 minutes. And you'll see that it's coated pretty well, but today is a very hot day and also humid. And it took a while to get that powder to stick. Now I know that Eastwood powders have been coating for 2 to 4 minutes and getting good coating. And Harbor Freight red is usually pretty good, and this took 10 minutes to do. So I'm kind of thinking that if I used a hand tumble, it wouldn't have covered very well. But no matter, if you find that your hand tumble doesn't get the powder to cover, you can do the vibratory tumbler like this, or use the Elvis Ammo 4 140 system. And you can go to Elvis Ammo to find out about that system, and that might work for you. So now you'll notice we're going to go ahead and do the shaking of our wire basket. A little vertical shaking and horizontal shaking and vertical. The idea is to get as much of the loose powder off of it as possible. So there we go. Now you know our friend Loads of Bacon likes to take these powder coated bullets and use latex gloves or your regular work gloves. Pick the bullets up and put them into this holder, and then you can take your oven pan and put it over like this, invert, go like this, and you got them all based down. Bullets are put on their bases like this with the Loads of Bacon idea, and you go ahead and process them like that. You get the very best results, bar none. And that makes it a little bit more regular in the form of getting them onto your pan base down, instead of having to try and line them all up one at a time. So that's kind of a nice idea, but we're not going to do that in this case. We're going to see how parchment paper on the basket works. So we're going to go ahead and take these bullets and disperse them onto the basket with the parchment paper lining. So you see, I could have done more bullets, but this is a test anyway. So now we're going to stack these like this and put them in the oven and try and separate them a little bit so they don't quite touch each other as much. But into the oven they go. Okay, they're in the oven at 400 degrees. But I sure could have done a lot more of those bullets. Trick is one layer only. Okay, 20 minutes went by. We took them out of the oven. And you know how our friend Elvis Ammo likes to take the basket and turn them over like this, and the bullets are stuck to the basket, and he wraps it like this to knock them loose? Well, you could certainly do that, but when the parchment paper's in there, the bullets just all come right off. And if any of them were touching and stick together, you just touch them with a glove and they separate right away. No need to think about doing any kind of water quenching here. We've got BHN 15 because of the alloy. We don't need to worry about water. So I'll give you a close-up of those bullets, and you see that the bases are well covered. The driving bands are well covered. There are some glitches in the two center ones. The two right ones don't, because those were the sides that were facing up from the basket. Now notice, we can be pretty happy with this, just the way it is right here with one coat. But you'll see right in the middle of the screen there, a little bit of kind of the residue from the contact with the parchment paper. You see that some of those bullets have some dull spots. That's where the parchment paper was sitting on the parchment paper. So let's go ahead and do a second coat and see what happens when we do that. Now I know in the past we've only done second coats when the powder coating was really bad, like with Harbor Freight white and this kind of thing. Well, we didn't get good results doing the second coat with those, but what happens when we get a good coat and do 2 coats of that? We'll find out. So we let those bullets cool and then put them in the vibratory tumbler, run it, and it only takes a minute for the coating to happen. It's quick. So there the bullets are in the basket, and you'll notice that some of them have highlights in them. Let me show you how you do that. I found that the latest way to do it, take a pair of tongs like this, and you can pick up a bullet. The bullet goes right into the center where the tongs are. So this is sitting in there. Then you put it down, roll it on a different contrasting color, pick it up, and you can knock the excess powder out of there nicely like this, and then put it back on your tray. And you can do any number of contrasting colors like this. Just roll it in there, pick it up, knock the excess powder out. You might find one that has kind of like a little not covered as well, and use that one to roll. Tongs knock the excess powder off very nicely, and that can give you some nice contrasting colors. Now I should get some bird yellow. In fact, I think I'll do that. Yet I went ahead and put a dash of Harbor Freight white there. That's that pesky stuff that isn't any good for anything. Let's see what happens when we go ahead and touch up some of the bullets with that Harbor Freight white in there. So here they are being taken out of the oven. We'll go over and throw them down on the floor to do a little separation and let them cool. Okay, unless you wait too long, the bullets are easily separated. And look at that, they're looking pretty good there. I would think you wouldn't want to do more than 2 coats. If you had to do more than 2 coats, something's wrong. Here are the results of the 2 coats of Harbor Freight red with the highlights added, and we even have one that's got a giraffe in there. And then there's one that's a blizzard, this kind of thing. Now here comes one that's the base, showing the base, 2 coats. And then the next 3 are the 2 coats of Harbor Freight red. You notice that still pretty good detail in the grooves, so that it's not that thick a coating. And the next 2, the last 2, are 1 coat. And if you look very carefully, you can see some little defects in there from the contact with the parchment paper, but that doesn't happen with the 2 coat. And of course, here's the hammer test, and hammered this thing flat, and you notice how that the bullet heats up to about 200 degrees when you hammer it flat. Well, in spite of all of that, plus the hammering, the powder coat stayed on there very tough. And as you know, sometimes I'm a little fast looking at these hammer tests, but I really looked at this very closely and with magnification, and you can't find any failing of the powder coat there. And this is the 2 coat. I normally get a bullet that I half reject, and it was hard to find a bad one in that batch, but I had to sacrifice one of them for this test. I mean, look at that. Even on the side that got pounded as thin as that, did not lose the powder coating. That is very impressive. So then you notice that I mic'd one of them that's probably the thickest ones of all, because it's got the highlights added, and you get 434. And you might say, well, that's awful. No, it isn't, because my Marlin 1894 needs 433 bullets anyway. These can be loaded without even sizing. And sizing them down to 430 is not a problem, especially when we spritz the bullets with our homemade case lube first. They'll size very easily. So shooters and reloaders out there, we found out a lot of good things today. 2 coats works well with good powders, and the baskets with the lining of the parchment paper, or probably even non-stick aluminum foil, will work very well. So interestingly, the 1 coat mics at 432. So you add 1/1000th of an inch on a side every coat. But whatever system you use to do your powder coat, get the results you want, it all works for us, and we've got a lot of choices and alternatives, options, and that's really good. Bye for now.